Vaginal dryness is something that can affect 1 in 3 women at any stage of their life. And did you know it's such a common problem, but women don't know where to get help? In today's podcast, I'm going to focus on vaginal dryness and all the different things that women can do to make life more comfortable to live in a vagina that's well lubricated. Hi, I'm Dr. Neelima Deshpande. I'm a gynecologist with 3 decades of international experience in women's healthcare. I have expertise in menopause and sexual health. And you're listening to V for Vagina, the podcast that dispels myths and misunderstandings about the vagina and empowers women to talk about their sexual needs, preferences, to improve their sexual well-being and vitality. A woman came to me recently, maybe a couple of months after she'd had her baby. She was breastfeeding, and they'd tried to become intimate the night before. She was worried because she started bleeding. In the clinic, I found that she's bleeding from a tear at the back of the vagina. Her vagina was dry as a paper. As I spoke to her, I realized they'd had a hard time since the baby was born. No time for each other, just tied up in this endless cycle of nappies and urine and stool and sleepless nights and no food. And as luck would have it, her mum came to visit and offered to look after the baby while she and her husband got a chance to spend some really, really cozy time together. And in their excitement, and because time was limited, they forgot the cardinal rule of great sex, which is to get really, really aroused. Now remember, our bodies are very different post-pregnancy and delivery compared to what happens to the body before you deliver a baby. Soon after delivering a baby, there's a predominance of the hormone progesterone. Unfortunately, it also means that there's not enough estrogen, which means the vagina is quite dry. And it doesn't respond to arousal exactly the same way as it used to before. So it's important to remember to check. Simple. Just put your finger there and find out, are you lubricating? And if you're not, take help of some lubricants. Vaginal dryness can happen at any age. And there's some key things that affect how well the vagina lubricates. It can be physical issues and psychological issues. And conditions like, lactation, when you're breastfeeding your baby. In my practice, when couples come to me for the first time saying that sex is painful or it's uncomfortable, there's 3 key emotions that stop a woman getting aroused. The first is fear. The second is anxiety. The third is anger and resentment. Usually in newly married couples, anger and resentment doesn't play such a big part, but fear is. Especially where women haven't had a chance to explore their sexuality, they've not been educated, and they don't have the vocabulary to describe to their new partners what they like and they don't like in bed. This anxiety of coming together for the first time with someone can make you go dry. This kind of dryness can happen later on as well, in a new relationship, at any stage. And you may be in a new relationship for any number of reasons, because you moved on from a previous one, or maybe because as an older woman, you may be widowed, or a younger woman, if you're widowed, or divorced, or separated. The first time in bed can be an anxious one. It pays to learn about your needs and preferences and desires and prepare. Prepare yourself. Don't leave things to chance. Your first interaction, sexual interaction with your partner, can make such a huge difference to how you remember that relationship and how deep you get. So learning to prepare for your first sexual encounter goes a long way in making sure it's comfortable for you. And preparing doesn't mean getting your vagina ready. Preparing means understanding the vocabulary and learning to talk about what you want with your partner. And that might be the clue to actually understanding if that's the partner you want to have sex with. So if they're not willing to listen to your needs, maybe for lubricant as well, and for the need to be aroused before intercourse happens, maybe you need to rethink that one. Some tips to get aroused is using sexy thoughts, giving yourself permission in the day, maybe just for 10 minutes to think sexy thoughts. Understanding the importance of foreplay, of a level of equality in who initiates sex, playfulness, titillation, mystery, anticipation, stories, variety, new locations, new textures, new sensations, and finding ways to fall in love with your body again, fall in love with your thoughts, sexy thoughts again, using erotica, magazines. I don't mean porn, because porn can be really dry sometimes if it puts you off. The moment you get put off, you can be pretty sure your vagina's not going to lubricate. So know what your brain likes, know what your body likes, and indulge in that. And for that, you might need to experiment in advance. Discover what you fantasize about, what turns you on, what kind of stories do you need, what kind of images do you like. Do you like romantic, soppy films? Or do you like hardcore erotica? There's so much today available. And if you use it responsibly, it can really, really spice up your sex life and make getting aroused very, very easy. Sometimes, when your body doesn't keep pace with your mind, and you can find that, it happened like with that client we talked about after her delivery. It can happen if you're with somebody for the first time after a break and you're excited and you want to get on with it and you haven't had time to get aroused. Or maybe if you're going through menopause or are postmenopausal where the vagina just doesn't keep up with your imagination. I would suggest you open up your mind to using lubricants. There's a huge range of lubricants available in the market today. My suggestion is usually to keep it as close as possible to what the natural vaginal secretions are like. And truly, if you're in the heat of the moment and you don't have a lubricant handy, don't hesitate to use your own saliva. There's two important functions that this serves. When you flood your mouth with saliva, it tells your body to relax. Your mouth becomes moist and your system resets, and it's so much more able to enjoy the feelings of arousal in the moment. And of course, the second purpose is if you flood your mouth with saliva, you can use some of it as a lubricant. My recommendation is always to go for water-based lubricants, especially in younger women. Water-based lubricants are also useful if you're using a condom. Condoms, usually those made of latex, can disintegrate if you use oils or creams. Water-based lubricants are the best. And still, there's a huge variety of water-based lubricants in the market. You've got to be cautious about which ones you pick. Try to go for those who don't have fragrances or added chemicals. And for sure, avoid those that contain glycerin. Remember, all lubricants aren't created equal. Just because it's a water-based gel doesn't mean it's okay to put inside the vagina. Read the ingredients list, and if you find potato starch anywhere, stay away from it. Both glycerin and potato starch allow the wrong kind of bugs to grow in your vagina. Oil-based lubricants, on the other hand, may be useful in menopausal and postmenopausal women. Unfortunately, they don't do much to help the vagina hydrate itself. And women going through menopause might need other kinds of lubricants to use in between sex. Moisturizers, they're called. They won't be available under the name of lubricant. They're more likely to be available as vaginal moisturizers. And they should be adjusted to the pH of the vagina. As you go through menopause, Decreasing estrogen levels means that the pH of the vagina changes. The vagina becomes thinner, less flexible, less hydrated, and you can often feel it really tighten up, get dry and paper thin, irritated, and it can sting and burn when you pass urine. The menopausal vagina, more than ever, needs moisturization and lubrication and regular stretching as well. If you're menopausal, get some vaginal estrogen, use the vaginal moisturizers, maybe even talk to your physiotherapist. Talk to your gynecologist. Your vagina will thank you for it. Another category that's often talked about are silicone-based lubricants. In today's day and age, where we love to use sex toys, especially to get aroused, silicone-based lubricants can end up damaging silicone toys. And somehow silicone is just not as natural feeling. It is slippery, but it's not as natural feeling as water-based lubricants. Water-based lubricants also have the advantage that you can recharge them, which means if you have a little spray bottle and it starts to go dry, you can spray some water on it and it just rejuvenates, which doesn't happen with silicone or oil-based lubricants. Think arousal and think lubricants. Keep a lubricant handy, read the ingredients, and make sure you've talked about it before you're in the heat of the moment and find that your partner has a judgment about you using a lubricant. There are many other conditions where your vagina can go dry. Sometimes you might be on some medication, or you had a really bad cold and you've taken some Sudafed, or you've taken some anti-allergy medication. And before you know it, your vagina is feeling dry. Sometimes antidepressants can cause vaginal dryness, on top of the dryness you get because you're depressed. I had a woman come to me recently. She was worried about changing her antidepressant medication. She'd got comfortable with the one she was on because she knew exactly how much lubricant she needed. Strange, isn't it? You judge your antidepressant medication based on how much lubricant you need? But it's true. For a woman's experience in her body, she knows how much stimulation she needs to feel aroused for her vagina to start lubricating, how much lubricant she's going to need to make it comfortable. And you know, as doctors, we change medications at the drop of a hat without even thinking of this. And if this patient of mine hadn't been empowered with the vocabulary of sex, she would never have been able to tell me. Certainly she couldn't talk to a psychiatrist about it. That's how important the experience of medication in your body is. Which brings me to another point is please don't share your medication or your lubricants with friends. It won't feel the same in their body. Let them choose what they like best. The last 2 years have been really difficult for couples, both in relationships, in new relationships, and long-distance relationships, and unrequited love. So many varieties and challenges. But for those who actually got sick, it's an even bigger challenge. Being a carer to someone who's sick and dying is a big put-off for sex. Recovering from an illness where you can't even breathe is really, really challenging for sex. Your breath is everything. The oxygen that goes through your blood to travel to different organs. You can't have a great arousal if you don't have great blood flow and oxygenation reaching the vagina. So know that if you've been sick, if you've been ill for any length of time, whether or not you've been on medication, whether or not you've been on antibiotics, it's very likely that your vagina will feel dry. Take some time to look after yourself. Bring back those sexy feelings. Indulge in some self-care, some massage, pelvic floor exercises. And don't forget to use a lubricant. Attitudes have changed a lot nowadays. There's more and more of you want to hear this stuff. Judging by the number of questions I get, the inquiries I get, I'm so glad that women are opening up. They want to learn about their bodies. They want to understand the vocabulary of sex. But attitudes do need to change. Your vagina doesn't exist to serve other people. It's yours first. So learning what makes you aroused, what allows your vagina to lubricate, if you're menopausal, the different kinds of moisturizers that would work, being able to ask your doctor for vaginal estrogen, using various tools and techniques, whether it's a vibrator, your fingers, an accommodator, in quotes, not dilator, to help your vagina accommodate better. These are all the essential tools to combat vaginal dryness at any age. But most of all, it's the understanding and the self-compassion for yourself, for your body, and this willingness to learn about your vagina that will pay the greatest dividends. So go out there and grab your lubricant of choice and keep it handy, so you never ever have to worry about a dry vagina. I've received so many questions. I'll soon be creating some episodes where I'm answering them for you. Keep your questions coming. Do subscribe and share it with the women in your life, and maybe even the men, especially if it's about vaginal dryness. A lot of society needs educating, bringing about awareness about female sexual problems. After all, there's a lot of men having sex with women and women with women. Women's vaginal health is so important. Keep coming back for more. Remember to like, subscribe, and share this podcast with whoever you think needs to hear it. If you'd like to talk to me one-on-one for a personal consultation, get in touch with me via my website, www.drneelima, Neelima, Deshpande, Deshpande.com. And you'll find a button there where you can click and book a slot with me. And I'll be sure to respond to any of your queries. Thank you. Disclaimer. This podcast is for general information purposes only. It does not constitute the practice of medicine, nursing, or other professional healthcare services, including the giving of medical advice. No doctor-patient relationship is formed. The use of this information and the materials linked to this podcast is at the user's or listener's own risk. The content on this podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment.